Robin, I know you're diving into nodes and Bitcoin, and it's like a good time to say, I've done all this good pushing work, but it's a time and a season to kind of slow down, learn new stuff, push yourself, slow down, grab a book, read a book, and it's nice to dive in again. And you think you've learned all this stuff, and I know all this stuff, and there's always more to learn. It's always decent options to go back to school a little bit for yourself.
There was a lot in there. I love that.
Morning, Johnny. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Johnny. Welcome back. Robin, you've been diving into you got to start.
You're gonna go where the dragons are right out of the gate.
Oh, I guess we don't have to go into all the deep territory, but
let's do it.
It's the back to school theme.
We couldn't help talking about it before the show, so I think we cannot help talking about it in the show.
I know, it's on my mind. Run a node. That's all we're saying is run a node.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it kind of started for me to be a topic, I think, first time on the podcast with George Bodine, where he was really emotional about it. And I think he even apologized later on, where he was like, oh, I shouldn't have been so emotional about it. And then it was kind of not that big of a deal, and now it's really bubbling up. Like you can't miss it. It's in the podcast and in the YouTube shows, and it's on Twitter, it's on the feeds, everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
you waded right into the deep end. You're just like, hey, I want to ask a question. It's like, oh, I remember I saw that. I was like, oh, don't you don't want to ask questions.
Don't ask questions.
Yeah, you just like keep your mouth shut and you either pick a side or keep quiet. But there's no middle ground. Like, I want to learn. Like, how dare you? How dare you, Robin? Don't you dare try and learn more about this topic.
Have you ever been on knots? Yeah, run a node, and in that process, hey, run more than one node, try things out, learn about it. My opportunity a few years ago was easy enough to download software in the first point, but then it was like, oh, I want my own separate specific hardware device and play around with that. And it's just learn about it. And a lot of people enter the space and it's like, yes, but what side are you on? So right. Like, okay, if we only have like 25,000 nodes, like we were saying, it doesn't matter. The important thing is running a node. So yeah, that's my back to school theme.
I like it. Well, I like the back to school theme, and I agree with the sentiment 100%. Like as I was pointing out backstage, I'm going to point out again, the vast majority of people that are really vehemently arguing these points are the kind of people that tuck their t-shirt into their underwear and they pick their belly button so they can sniff their finger. I mean, these are like deeply autistic kind of coders, and they have strong opinions about things, and it's very hard for them to deviate from them. I'm not saying all coders, I'm painting a broad brush here, and I know I'm shitting on people's heads probably needlessly, and I'm just adding inflammatory, rhetoric to the debate. But at the end of the day, these are people that don't get along well with people. They get along well with code. And there's a reason why the tone of the debate has degraded so rapidly. And so, I mean, it's down to like, you're the FBI. Oh, you guys are, CP peddlers or whatever. And it's just like, okay, well, that's, you're pretty much at the end of the dialogue at that point. So
I will say, not to interrupt, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead. I'm just bashing on coders right now.
People gravitate into, if you say, rhetoric or strong personal attacks and whatnot. I think people gravitate there because they care so deeply. We care so deeply about Bitcoin. At the end of the day, we all want Bitcoin to succeed, to work, to change the world as it will. And so you care very deeply. And so when you see any threat, you want it to stop, or especially if it's a perceived threat that also involves CP or spam or all this stuff. You see it as a threat, and so you want it to stop and you want to fight it at the best that you know how. So, I mean, I get the passion, but then again, I hate to see Bitcoiners divided. So,
and the main thing that is because I got the question yesterday actually, and someone was like, "Oh, are you afraid to pick a side?" And I'm like, actually, I kind of am. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy on the side that is accused of being a child pornographer and doing that. But I also don't want to be accused of being in cahoots with the FBI. So,
Right.
and there are many other things that both sides says bad about the other side. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not afraid, but honestly, picking a side with more and more intensity, it makes less and less sense for me. We're like, yeah, I run my node, and I think running a node is great, but the reward for picking a side is getting very slim, and I'm like, it's no longer a technical or like a productive debate. It's more of like a drama, a soap opera, if you will. Like,
Yeah.
it's entertaining maybe for some. Like, people like drama, people like entertaining stuff, but I don't see a lot of productive questions and great debates that actually go into the weeds of it and ask the interesting things, and more drama. But maybe that's just how the algorithm on Twitter works also.
Well, it absolutely does. I mean, like, the algorithm favors this kind of debate 100% because it's driven towards conflict. It's driven towards things like, hey, this is getting a lot of engagement. So the algorithm is naturally going to gravitate towards the things that get the most engagement. And, a lot of the people that are saying this stuff thrive on engagement, right? I mean, like, all of this stuff relies on people engaging with their idea, and whether you're whichever side you're on, the more engagement you get, like, you'll notice that the people that get very little engagement from the algorithm are the people that come along and go, well, here's a really long, dense bunch of text about why all of reasons, and reasons for and reasons against. Like, you'll get like 50 views, right? And something like that. If you come out and go, hey, these people are, or do you want, CSAM on your network? Are you going to broadcast that? Are you one of those people? Then you go, well, that's going to get a lot of engagement, right? And so it sort of naturally gravitates towards conflict. And as many people pointed out, and it's usually the pro core side that goes, hey, man, I was just at some conference, and like literally no one came up and said not even word one to me about it. So, like, I love that you're all keyboard warriors and willing to, spout a bunch of nonsense behind your, the facade of your screen. But, in person, you're just like, hey, how's it going? Like, you got nothing to say. And so I'm not saying that's universally true. What I can say is, like, the argument has devolved to such a state where it's like you said, it's sort of pointless to engage in it, because then you're literally just like red versus blue. And at the core of the debate is something this is not a new discussion, right? Like, people are framing it like this is some existential threat to Bitcoin, or it's this, or it's that, or it's going to break everything, and yada, yada, yada. But the thing is, that's every single prohibition debate in the history of prohibition schemes, right? Like, if you go back 2,000 years, there was some guy that went around and said, hey, I don't think prostitution is a good idea. We should ban it. We don't want to encourage prostitution. We don't want this. We don't want that. And the problem is the core behavior is sex, right? Like, the baseline behavior is sexuality. We don't like women charging for sex. We think that's a moral corruption. We don't think that's, it doesn't honor the intention of the Bible. It doesn't honor the intent of the Creator. It's a moral imperative that we do this. But there are some people that go, kind of, it helps people get by. Like, not everyone agrees that prostitution should be banned, right? So it's behavior that some people don't like and want to curtail it. But there's a financial reward at the other side of it. You go, well, for some people, they make a lot of money, like selling sex. So you're trying to ban financially lucrative activity that some people don't like. You go, well, how do you do that? And that's been the problem. Every single person that has an idea that they go, some people don't like this and we want to ban it. You go, how do you tackle that problem? It's nearly impossible. And you can see it in the drug war. You can see it with prostitution. You can see it with gun bans. You can see it with, any type of voluntary behavior that has a financial reward that some people don't like. When those some people try and ban it, there are negative externalities that arise from the attempt to ban voluntary, economically lucrative behavior that some people don't like. There's a reason back in the history of the law, there were only 7 common law felonies, and they were called the common law and common law felonies because they were common throughout the realm. Everybody in the realm could agree, hey, if you murder somebody, that's no good. Like, we don't have to have a moral debate about it. We don't have to go, well, sometimes murder is okay because, so it's like, there's no gray area. You go, did you murder that guy? Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Like, everybody agrees you're not supposed to kill somebody. Everybody agrees you're not supposed to kidnap somebody. Everybody agrees you're not supposed to rape somebody. Everybody agrees that you're not supposed to steal from somebody. Like, these are all very easy things to define. And that's why there's only 7 of them that they listed. And the punishment for violating those rules was death. They go, oh, you stole a loaf of bread? Hang them, right? Like, it was straightforward, cut and dried. No one debated it. They go, oh, well, you're a thief. Hang them. And there are still countries to this day. It's like, oh, you're a thief, cut off his hands. Like, there's, zero tolerance for very common things that everyone can agree these are violations of the social code. Things like, is it okay to wrestle with a greased pig? Well, some people don't like that people wrestle with greased pigs. They find it offensive and they don't want it to happen. They want to ban that behavior. Other people think it's a lot of fun to wrestle with a greased pig. Some people think you shouldn't be able to do some drugs. Other people think you should be able to do some drugs. Some people think you should not be allowed to have a machine gun. Other people think you should be allowed to have a machine gun. So these are all judgment calls. These are all things that some people don't like. Some people have the ability to do that, and they try and ban that behavior. But there's a financial reward to wrestling greased pigs. There's a financial reward to selling sex. There's a financial reward to selling machine guns. There's a financial reward to all this sort of stuff. So when you start getting into the weeds about how do we ban that, how do we prevent that, it's a really, really, really tricky thing to do. And so the one side says, hey, we're going to fix this with policy. And you go, that's not going to work, right? It can't work. The other side says, well, we're going to take a laissez-faire approach because they're just doing it anyway. And you go, that's not a good idea. That's not going to work either. Like, you have to strike some sort of balance somewhere, and it's always going to be gray, and it's always going to be nebulous, and it's always going to be fraught with problems. So the way you tackle it is not as cut and dried and as straightforward as people want to make it seem. So that's my soapbox for the day. I'll try and shut up because I always do this. I'm always soapboxing.
Good analogy there. And when I think about it, one thing that pushes the debate right now is the proposals being implemented into Core 30, which when you think about, we either ban it or we open the floodgates. And in between, thinking of the prostitution thing, it's like, okay, well, what if it was regulated? Like, okay, people are gonna do it, but we try to do it so that it protects women. It's done safely. It's, not underground and criminal and whatever, pimps and stuff. Maybe a stretch of an analogy here, but Bitcoin is based on consensus. So there's no state saying, okay, here's the law now. This is what it is. It's open source software, and you can run the node you want. And so at least I have my strong personal opinions about how you might run a node and what I want in a block and yada, yada. My personal strong beliefs. The problem would be that the threat to Bitcoin would be, say, the lack of decentralized consensus. We need more nodes. Like, if you care this much, run a node, promote a node, but articulate why. And so when we devolve into the strong, passionate personal attacks that we see, it's like, I see more people spinning up nodes and learning about it. At the same time, I don't want people new to Bitcoin going, what is all this? Like, I don't understand. So it's a double-edged sword. I think more people are starting to say, yeah, I'm going to run a node now. Oh, what node? Hey, think about it. That's great. I also don't want people going, oh, Bitcoin's kind of got some weird navel gazing going on here. So
yeah. I don't think new people to Bitcoin hear anything about that. Because I make commonly community questions on my YouTube to gauge where is the community that watches my channel kind of standing, and I ask questions of like, hey, do you do self-custody? And I usually get like 50% of people saying, yeah, I do self-custody, maybe 60%, and the rest is like, no, like I'll rather keep them at an exchange. I don't trust myself, basically. Like that's the thing. And I asked recently of like, hey, do you run a node? It was just like a week ago, and people ask me, what is a node? like is that the miner thing? And so I think we are very deep in the weeds, and the broader Bitcoin community might just not care. I mean, it gets more and more like more and more people talk about it. Like Jeff Booth made some comments, Matthew Grider made comments, like on big shows that people actually watch. More comments are being made. But people don't even know what Bitcoin node is. They definitely don't know what the difference between core and nodes is. And I would make the argument not a lot of people actually know.
Right.
And there's just I don't know, like 5 to 10 really loud voices on the one side, and 5 to 10 really loud voices on the one side. So there's like those are fighting, and there's a bunch of smaller accounts that are chiming in, and so. I also thought about that. Is like, is there a risk that people are turned off by Bitcoin because we are having kind of infights? I don't think people even go that far. Like they're like, oh, Bitcoin goes up. Oh yeah. Oh, Anthony Pompliano said it's September is going to be an up month on CNBC. Oh yeah, I'll buy some more. I think that's the level that most Bitcoiners, I'm talking when we count every Bitcoiner that has Bitcoin in some accounts, this is what they see. I don't think they listen to the infighting debates.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. 100%. Like that, I think you framed it so well. And that's one of the things when I'm always promoting, like, please run a node. Like, it's so important that we run nodes, right? And it's because there's like, depending on what number you choose, it's somewhere between 8 and 80 million people that have exposure to Bitcoin, right? But there's 20,000 nodes. So you go, the people that are actual, like, true dyed-in-the-wool Bitcoiners are 20,000 at best, 23,000 depending on the node count of the day. And you know, of those, probably a third, 5,000-6,000 of those nodes, 7,000 of those nodes are run by corporations in Wales, right? So you go, okay, so that means out of all the 23,000 nodes, there's probably 14,000 pleb run nodes. So you go, all right, well, so 14,000 people have some voice in where this discussion is going. And those are the people that are voicing strong opinions, I think, in these discussions. But the other 80 million people don't even know this discussion is happening, and they don't care, and they won't care. And that's why I think it's so much more important for all those loud voices to be directed towards one central cause. Like, teach the plebs, the real plebs, the rest of the world that has Bitcoin exposure, that bought into it because of a Michael Saylor video that said number go up forever and it's immutable and perfect money and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, it's got some of those characteristics, but they're fragile. They're not guaranteed. And the thing that will increase the benefit for everybody is that more and more people run nodes. If we had 1 million nodes running right now, I'd sleep like a baby. 20,000 nodes, I'm like that's literally the tone in my brain at all times. So I really wish people would orient their messaging towards, hey man, it's so important that we run a node. It's so important that if you have Bitcoin exposure, that you go a little deeper, you understand self-custody, you understand node running gives you a voice in all of these debates, even if you don't necessarily understand them right now. Just the act of like figuring out how to set the stupid thing up puts you in a different position. It puts you in a different light. It makes you part of the network. And you can then choose, you know, when you see the debate, because then all of a sudden they'll be keyed into these debates. They'll be going like, hey, wait a minute, I run a node. What are these people talking about right now? Then you can start doing some research and trying to figure out which side, if there is a side to pick, you can start deciding which side to be on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I think more software implementations is a benefit. I like that core or knots exists because it's a different implementation of the software, and it gives people a choice in what software they're running. But you also have LibBitcoin, that is Eric Voskuil's thing that he's been working on for a better part of a decade. I think that's going to reduce a lot of this noise in general because the block sync times come way, way down under his scheme. You know, like we're talking like syncing the chain in like less than a few hours kind of thing. And so there's parallel processing involved, but he's still working on the server implementation. But you could actually run LibBitcoin node right now. You just can't really use it the way like to transact necessarily, but you can monitor transactions, you can verify and validate transactions and all that kind of stuff. But you have to compile it from code. So it's not like a straightforward process for someone who's just getting into Bitcoin, right? But that's going to be available soon. So that'll be a third implementation of the Bitcoin software that I go, hey, this is great, man. There's more diversity of the software. And as long as it's all following the same consensus rules, then we get a lot more voice in like what that means. And, when you say like Bitcoin is based on consensus, I go, well, there is a consensus rule. Everyone is in consensus of what constitutes a valid transaction. But the core ethos of Bitcoin is permissionlessness, not consensus. It's not the consensus of the plebs. It's not the consensus of the devs. It's the permissionless access to the network is the thing that makes it. Decentralized and permissionless are the two core components. Consensus is just a mechanism by which we validate transactions, so maintaining permissionlessness is huge. It's very, very important, as is decentralization. So please, if you're listening, run a node.
Yeah, good point there. And just having accessible, diverse options to learn from and then pick one or make your own. It's all important. And but I mean, I threw up a graph of the number of reachable nodes out there, and it's like, okay, we're slowly, steadily approaching like say 25,000 nodes. But I mean, at that rate, we don't get to 100,000 nodes for what, 5-10 years. So yeah, we need more as we go back to school, and I just encourage people, go back to school, dive back in. If you like Bitcoin, read a little more, study a little more. Yeah. Spin up a node if you're not already, and if you're running a node, maybe run a second one, run it on hardware, run it on your own dedicated hardware, but just kind of keep walking the path. So
yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, if you look at those node counts, like if you look right after 2020, the node counts dip pretty hard, right? So like there's a lot of interest in running a node when Bitcoin is climbing the charts. That interest declines pretty rapidly after the charts start nuking, right? So I think in 2019, 2020, like nodes bottomed out at like 8,000 or 9,000 or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. And then they've been climbing ever since. And so it's really hard to say like, are nodes actually increasing right now, or is it just sort of a normal fluctuation in the number of nodes? Because it's vacillated wildly since 2010, right? What I think would be unmistakable is if we saw like a huge spike, like if every single influencer would just get on board and just start going, hey, number go up is great. Bitcoin is great. Freedom Tech is great. By the way, run a node, like the most important thing you can do is help run a node. Right. And so there, as you can see, there are some dips in where nodes occur. Right. And like the node saturation. So, yeah, I mean, we really, really, really need to be much stronger on the messaging. As anybody that cares about Bitcoin should be messaging 24/7. Hey, please run a node. If you're new to Bitcoin, consider running a node. If you've been in Bitcoin a long time, consider running a node. If you're talking about Bitcoin, tell people to run a node. If you fire up a node, convince someone else to run a node. Just like convince someone to get off zero. Once they're off zero, convince them to get off zero on nodes. And we can preserve the decentralized permissionless network that we all think is going to fix the world, right? That's the key message.
Yeah. And I still feel confident in, with all the debate going on, it's TikTok next block. I still see the tentacles of Bitcoin changing the entire system. And a lot of that's going to be through stable coins and TradFi that can't ignore numbers and all this stuff. But I still feel hugely bullish about all of it. So despite all the noise, if I back off and just think about the fundamentals, what Bitcoin is doing, it is still the biggest thing we've seen in anyone's lifetimes financially, economically. The entire game has changed. So that has not changed. So,
and I've actually looked at kind of the journey that most Bitcoiners take, and like there's for me, I don't know if I brought this actually up last week also, but there's like those main 3 pillars that you get from Bitcoin. Is the first is the wealth, I save things and like my number goes up. The second is the freedom aspect, where running your own node and self-custody and those kind of things come into play. And then this third pillar for me is then the community. You actually get involved in a meetup, you go to a conference, you maybe start an article, you write a blog, you maybe go further down the line and like start a podcast, write a book, or like whatever you do.
Thank you for watching this video. This is just a short clip from our full episode. So if you'd like to enjoy more entertaining wisdom found in our podcasts in their full context, just click a link in the corner. We are always sharing our big ideas on Bitcoin Liberty Live.